Welcome to Boardroom Scriptures, where we break down Bible stories and extract real business, leadership, and life strategies, especially for our Nigerian reality. Because in today's world, everyone is chasing money, connections, visibility, but very few people are intentionally building wisdom. Today's story, Solomon, or better put, what if the real advantage in business is not capital, but thinking? Stay tuned. All right, so welcome back, and let's go into a relatable narration of this story. Again, we're looking at Solomon, all right, with the sub theme: what if the real advantage in business is not capital but thinking? Because sometimes we have this assumption that to start any business, we need capital, we need money, we need finance. But a lot of times, it might not be about that, because you might have all the capital, you might have all the finance. If you can't think and apply the right strategy to it, the money will just fizzle away. It's about how do you manage the finance or the capital when it comes. It takes a lot of thinking. And we're looking at the story of Solomon very quickly here. Now, of course, you're going to find this story in the book of First Kings from chapter 3 to chapter 10. About 8 chapters of the book of First Kings, you find the story of Solomon in detail there. Now, let's look at Solomon. Solomon becomes king at a young age. No long career history. Remember, he was one of the last children of King David from his wife, Bathsheba, the former wife of Uriah the Hittite. But that's another story. You find all that in earlier chapters of, preferably, especially in the book of 2 Samuel, particularly. Now, Solomon does not have any long career history as such. No years of experience, right? Just responsibility. It was just thrust upon him. David said, oh, you're going to be the next king. And he announced that his son Solomon be anointed king of Israel. Then God appears to Solomon and says, ask me for anything. That was a blank check. You know, a lot of times you wonder if God could just give you such blank checks and just say, ask me for anything. I wonder what many of us would ask. You might want to put in the comment section what you will be asking for, basically. Now, let's pause. What will most people think of naturally when you have a blank check where God is asking you to ask him for everything, anything? Some will ask for wealth, some will ask for power, some will ask for long life, some will ask for victory over enemies, just the same way God itemized it for Solomon there. But Solomon does something very unusual. He asks for something unusual. He says, give me wisdom to lead these people. Solomon was more concerned about the responsibility that has been put into his hands, and he knew that has been committed into his hands. And he knew that if I'm going to do this right, if I'm going to be like my father, or even be greater than my father, because remember, David was a great king. So stepping into those shoes was a very heavy one for Solomon. Solomon was stepping into very, very huge, very big shoes of David there. So he knew that for me to succeed in this thing, in this job, right, that's been committed into my hands, I need wisdom. So he asked God for wisdom. And he says, give me wisdom to lead this one. What does God say? God responds and says, because you did not ask for riches, I will give you wisdom. I will also give you riches and honor. And then we begin to see it. So God was, amazed because what Solomon even displayed there in the first place was wisdom, knowing that I'm not going to ask for riches or power and all those things. If I have wisdom, naturally to bring every other thing to me. Right. Now, and we begin to see demonstrated. One of the first acts of Solomon after that prayer, after God answered him, was the fact that 2 women came to see Solomon with one baby. Both were claiming the child. No witnesses, no evidence. A deadlock. Right. And what does Solomon say? Solomon says, bring me a sword. Let's divide the child into 2. One woman agrees. The other woman cries out, no, give her the child. And immediately Solomon knows who the real mother is. Simple, classic wisdom there. Because he realized that the real mother of the child would rather have the child with somebody else, but know that that child is still alive, than have the child destroyed. And that was wisdom that was demonstrated there. Case closed. But that was just the beginning. And from there, Solomon begins to demonstrate a lot of, exceptional wisdom. He builds massive infrastructure. He establishes international trade from strategic alliances like the one he had with Hiram, the king of Tyre. He attracted global attention to the point that even the queen of Sheba from Africa found her way down there just to go listen and hear of the wisdom of Solomon. Israel, that's the kingdom of Solomon, becomes economically powerful. They become politically stable to the point that throughout the time Solomon was king, there was never any war. He never fought a battle. He never fought one single battle throughout his time as king. It takes a lot of strategic wisdom, strategic alliances to be able to achieve that. In other words, every other nation were at peace with him. takes wisdom to achieve that. Right. The Israel became globally respected, all under one leadership advantage. And what was that advantage? Wisdom. This is very important. In fact, this is more important. It's the biggest advantage anyone can have in the place of business. In the workplace, either as a business person or as an employee or as an employer, wisdom is the principal thing to get. We'll be right back. Okay, and now we're back. Now let's take it down to the business sense. We've done the summary so far. Let's go down and narrow down into the business side of things here now. And again, I'm going to be giving you 7 points. The first one we have here is that wisdom is a strategic asset. Wisdom is a strategic asset. Very important. If you notice from what we said earlier on, Solomon did not ask God for money. The Bible says that he never asked for money. He asked instead for the ability to think correctly, and then money followed. In today's world, a lot of people chase funding. You know, you have businesses, you're looking for money, you say you need capital, We have startups saying, oh, we need this, we need funding for this, we need $300,000, we need $1 million, we need this, we need that. And because of that, they refuse to start because they say we don't have the relevant funding yet. But if you're able to think correctly, you will know that it's not about chasing funding, it's about having that decision-making ability. A lot of people chase funding, but they lack decision-making ability. And the lesson from this first point we just said here is that money can be lost, connections can fail, but wisdom compounds. You might have the funding, but because business doesn't go right, maybe there's a regulation from government that just affects that particular sector. All the money you invested, that's it. It goes down the drain. So money can actually be lost. Connections can fail. You might have connections. Maybe the person you're banking on gets into one trouble or the other. That's the end of that connection. But the wisdom you have is what compounds, is what keeps bringing more opportunities and keeps giving you the right direction to know what to do per time. Then we go to point number 2. Decision-making defines leadership. Decision-making defines leadership. So one of the most important things about leadership is the ability to make decisions. Because a lot of times as a leader or as a business leader, you're going to find yourself under pressure, not even only as a business leader. In whatever capacity you find yourself leading, you're going to find yourself under pressure where you need to make decisions, where people are counting on you. We see a lot of examples in the Bible. Look at where Moses was standing there. The Egyptians were coming after them from the back, and the Red Sea was right there in front of them. They didn't know what to do. They were waiting for Moses. And that's what happens because every time we find ourselves waiting for our leaders to tell us what to do. So if you're a leader who doesn't know how to make decisions when they ought to be made, you cannot last or you cannot succeed as a leader. The baby case, going back to this case of Solomon, it was not about the law. It wasn't about law. There was no precedence to that. There was never an issue before where people brought a baby and they were quarreling over the baby or whose baby it is. So it was an unprecedented case. Solomon did not have any books, any law books to refer to like our lawyers today, citing one case or the other, right, as precedent. There was nothing to cite as precedent there. It was about discernment. It wasn't about law. Solomon, because of the wisdom God had given to him, was able to discern, right? Solomon understood human psychology. He knew that if I say kill this baby, the real mother will show up. She would rather forfeit the baby than allow the baby die. That was human psychology. Because you've carried the baby for 9 months. You not just want to watch that baby just die because, you're trying to prove a point. And that's why the other woman immediately was identified as the wrong mother. Solomon understood emotional triggers. It wasn't just about human psychology. He understood emotional triggers, knowing that some actions will trigger you emotionally and make you act in a particular way. And from there, you can determine what the right course of action is. Solomon also understood truth beyond appearances. Both women, you could never really tell who was the mother because they were both claiming the child. But because Solomon understood that truth is beyond appearances, which is wisdom that also comes from God. Just like the Bible says that man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. So Solomon could not actually look at the heart, but he knew that there was truth beyond appearances. And again, through the wisdom he was able to bring to bear there, he was able to identify who the right mother of that child was. What is the lesson from this particular point we've just made? Great leaders are not just informed, they are perceptive. Great leaders are not just informed. They don't only just know, they are also able to perceive. Even the things that are not clear, they can see beyond it. They can see through those hidden lines. They are able to see beyond, beyond the lines, read beyond the lines and all that. Understand those fine lines that are not very visible. That's what it takes to stand out as a great decision maker, a great leader who is able to make decisions. We go to the third point there. Your thinking determines your skill. The way you think determines how much you can scale. Solomon did not just rule, he built systems. We heard about trade networks. If you read the book of First Kings chapter 3 all the way down to chapter 10, you see all these things there. He had construction projects, he had economic policies, right? It was not just about ruling, it was about setting up systems that could continue to the point that the Israeli economy was so rich that it got to a point that the Bible says that gold was so common, silver, copper, all these things, precious stones were flowing freely because the man knew how to make the right strategic alliances, connect with the right people, get the relevant resources. And again, the beauty of it all is that he did all this in a very peaceful economy without any wars. It takes a lot of wisdom to have achieved that. So the lesson from here is that if your thinking is small, your business will remain small. How far are you thinking? Do you think your business is just at this level? You might have that little business that maybe is worth about 100,000 naira. What makes you think that business cannot scale to 1 million, to 10 million? But it starts with what you can see. How far can you see? How far can you think? And that is what is very important. And wisdom helps you achieve that. And so then the fourth point here is that strategic partnerships accelerate growth, right? You can't do everything alone, right? You need alliances, you need collaborations, you need partnerships. And that's one of the things Solomon leveraged upon. You hear him talk about the Hiram, king of Tyre, you had Queen of Sheba, you had many of those people were coming down to Israel. A lot of alliances were being formed during this period, right? They brought resources, and through these alliances, he had resources, he had expertise, and he had international access. And that's why Solomon, he was a friend of many people. I'm trying to see which president I can compare Solomon with today in terms of affiliations and all that. Maybe I don't want to call any names particularly, but basically, it's one of the things most of the leaders who are able to maintain cordial relationships with many other leaders, you see that their countries seem to do well because they understand how to play that politics. And, so it's very important. Solomon understood this. And this brought him resources, it brought him expertise, and of course, international access. In Nigeria today, many people want to own everything. They want to be the only one doing everything. While it's not a bad ambition, really, but, you can't be everything. So there are some things you don't want to be a jack of all trades, master of none. I understand that phrase has different connotations, but let's leave that aside. Basically, you need interdependence. You also there are things another person has that you don't have. Instead of you trying to build from the scratch, you just latch onto that person's expertise, and also the person also gets something from you in return. Like one of the games we do at Dynamico, we teach at Dynamico Consulting as part of our board games as a service is Monopoly. And one of the things Monopoly does for you is teaches you strategic alliances. It's possible now I land on a particular property, I need the entire color group, but I only have one in that color group. Now there's someone else who has another color group. He has 2 properties there, but he needs one. He has one that I need and all of that. Before you know what's going on, because he can build without me and I cannot build without him. Because for me to be able to build in Monopoly, I need to have the complete color group. So what do I have to do? We need to find a way to exchange. I'll give him what he needs and he's going to give me what I need. Then we can negotiate how much figures we want to exchange, among other things. And in some cases, he has what I need, but I don't have everything he needs. He has everything I need, but I don't have everything he needs. So I'll give him the parts of what he needs that I have and go look, maybe negotiate another player to get what he has that I need so I can pass on to this guy. You see how, and that's what Monopoly does to you. It teaches you alliances. And before you know what's going on, everybody's building and everybody's making profits. Unlike where everybody just sits down because nobody wants to partner. Right. So Solomon understood how to work with that. And what's the lesson we have here? Partnership is not weakness, it is leverage. One of the things we do at Dynamico Consulting basically is also to liaise with a lot of partners. We take every job. We tell ourselves that, look, bring the jobs, no problem. Project management, educational service, we'll do it. There are some that we latch onto our strategic partnerships to achieve. All we just need to do is own the process, ensure they are falling in line, the standards that we are known for are maintained. But they get to deliver the job. And that's how we build a lot of alliances. The same way people bring jobs to us too that they know we have expertise in. Instead of reinventing the wheel, why don't people collaborate? Now we go to the 5th point, which is Reputation is a currency. Very important. Reputation is a currency. What is your reputation? Now, there's a part of of consulting now that people are coming into. It's becoming a bit more popular. We call it reputational management. Organizations need it. Individuals need it. People in the public eye need it. Politicians, influencers, among other people, actors, and all that. They all need these things because from time to time, the minute you get into the public eye, you're scrutinized. Everybody is watching you. So you need things that help ensure that your reputation is not done. Because if your reputation can be stained, all that stardom, you could lose it in one day. You could become the villain from the hero overnight. So, which is one of the reasons why reputation is very, very important. Are you who you say you are? You need to mean what you say and say what you mean. You need to do what you say you will do at all points in time. That's one of the ways to maintain your reputation. And of course, Solomon had this. The Queen of Sheba didn't visit randomly. She didn't just visit. She came because of what she heard. In fact, the Bible lets us understand that she traveled for months with her chariot, with her entire entourage, from Africa, Ethiopia, all the way down to Israel. There were no cars then, remember? So they all went on camel and horseback, among other things. They traveled for months because she wanted to come and see Solomon and the person she had heard of his wisdom. So that's what reputation does. It's a currency. Solomon's brand traveled before him. Solomon didn't need to go anywhere. They were coming to him because of his reputation. That's what reputation will do for you. Right, it's a currency. The lesson here basically is that your work should speak so loudly that opportunities come looking for you. You need to be so good that they say, no, nobody else could do it like this. Your work has to speak for itself. It has to speak for you. And that's what commands the referrals. A lot of times you find out if your work is so good in business, you won't need to chase some clients. They will come after you by themselves because your reputation precedes you. So it's very, very important. Your work should speak so loudly that opportunities come looking for you. And it's not enough for the opportunities to come looking for you. You must also be prepared for the opportunities. You must also be prepared for these opportunities when they come. It's not enough to have them. You must be prepared. So when they meet you, and automatically it becomes a win-win for everybody. So I'll take it down. The sixth point there is prosperity without discipline is dangerous. That's also very, very important. So as much as everything, the same way we talk about competence and character, that you can have character, you can have competence. If you don't have character, it will ruin it. It will ruin everything for you. It's better to have character and not have competence because you can build competence. Yes, just the same way you can build character, but character can destroy your competence. Character, without the right character. So likewise too, if you have prosperity and you're not disciplined with it, it's very dangerous because prosperity is power. There's a level you get to that you're so powerful that if you don't know how to handle it very well, you could land into serious trouble because you're not disciplined. Here's the twist. Solomon started with wisdom. Remember, he told God that God give me wisdom so I can rule these people well. Then God gave him the wisdom and he was on a very wonderful path. Right. But later in life, it became excessive. He accumulated too much. He made compromised alliances. Because it gets to a point, prosperity, if you don't know how to keep yourself in check, you forget who you are. And this is what happens to a lot of our politicians today, a lot of our people of power. The same people you used to hang out with, that used to be the regular guy, they get to a place of power, they forget who they are. No, you can't allow prosperity make you forget who you are. Yes, there could be boundaries among other things, but you still need to be very wise in how to handle such things. So you don't alienate the same people that were there on your way up. Because yes, nothing lasts forever. Power is transient. You might find yourself on the way down, and these are the same people you're still going to meet again. So very important, when you have prosperity, stay disciplined. Don't get carried away with it because it could be very disastrous. So still on the story of Solomon, he made compromised alliances. He began to do, the Bible says that he started taking wives. He had 700 wives, 300 concubines. You think Solomon went after all those women? No, they came after him. He had enough to go round. You know, it's just like the typical guys now that have numerous side chicks and all that. And now you can only have side chicks when you have money. You understand? If you don't have money, where are you going to? You can't have side chicks. So that's one of the things prosperity can do. When you get so powerful, so rich, and it's so easy, you begin to accumulate too much. And before you know what's up, too much of everything is bad. And that's what happened to Solomon. I can assure you, they came after him. And he felt, yeah, I can accommodate. Come on, keep coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, until he got to 700 and 300 concubines. So he legally married 700 women. I mean, he would have spent a large part of his life planning weddings because each of those weddings will have been a hit. And concubines too. And that's what it does when you don't know how to manage prosperity. And eventually, a system weakened. The same system of wisdom God had built in him weakened because it got too excessive, he accumulated too much, and he made compromised alliances among other things. He forgot himself, basically. And what's the lesson here? Success can destroy people who don't evolve with it. If success comes your way, if you don't know how to evolve, grow with the success. Because it's not the same. The levels of success, there are levels of success. There are some levels of success that for you to be able to handle it, you have to grow into it before you can handle that level of success. If you don't grow into it, if that success hits you, it will destroy you. That's what it is. So we need to learn that, just like the lesson says here, if you don't know how to evolve with your success, it will destroy you. We'll go to the final point, which is number 7 now. Wisdom must be sustained. So it's not just enough to have wisdom. Wisdom is just like every other thing. I mean, basically, if you don't use some things, they begin to diminish. That's how wisdom is. If you have it and you don't utilize it, and the only way you can sustain it is by utilizing and using it again and again, subjecting yourself to places and processes that your wisdom can be demonstrated. So it has to be sustained. It is not enough to remain wise, to be wise once. It's not enough to be wise once. You must remain grounded, knowing that the fact that you're wise means that more temptations will come your way, more challenges will come your way, and you're meant to overcome. As you overcome them, you become wiser. You become wiser. That's why you know more. Even when you fall, when you lose, like in our board games as a service, we tell our students that in chess, in fact, in any games, you don't lose, you learn. It's either you win or you learn. Those are the two things. There is no lose. Nobody loses anything. So the fact that you didn't win a game means you have learned how to win the game the next time. You have learned how not to play so that you win next time. And that's how you learn. So likewise, you need to stay grounded. Keep learning with every experience. Keep getting better and better. And that's how wisdom is sustained. You must be disciplined. You must be able to know when to say no and when to say yes. Very important. That's the challenge a lot of us have. We don't know how to stay disciplined when things come our way, especially when you're too comfortable. That's why comfort itself can be a very, very bad thing if we don't know how to handle it. Too much comfort. Even when you have comfort, don't get too comfortable. Stay grounded, stay disciplined, and of course, stay aligned, because there's a path you're following. You want to stay aligned on that purpose. Ensure you don't find yourself drifting, because the longer you drift, the longer it takes for you to fulfill your destiny. What's the lesson from number 7 here? The same wisdom that builds must be maintained to preserve. The same wisdom that builds must be maintained. If you don't maintain the wisdom, it can't preserve you. You will fall by the wayside. The story of Solomon was not as pleasant as its beginning, because it got carried away by all. The same wisdom God gave him, it accumulated so much. And if you read the book of Proverbs, you're going to see a lot of his regrets there. A lot of regrets Solomon had. He penned a lot of them down in Proverbs. The lessons he learned from life. So these are books that every one of us should actually read, especially the book of Proverbs. You read the book of 1 Kings chapter 3 to chapter 10, then read the book of Proverbs. That gives you the story of Solomon. And anyone who reads and understands that, you'll be wiser than you currently are. Now, let's wrap it up quickly with a Nigerian reality check, and we bring it home. Many businesses fail not because of lack of money, but because of poor decisions. So it's not really money that makes businesses fail. Because we've had businesses that have been funded, had good money, and still crumbled because they were not making the right decisions. Number 2, many leaders rise fast but cannot sustain success. It's a difficult thing. Success is very, very hard to sustain, especially if you don't have wisdom. So leaders, that's one of the things you should pray for first. Wisdom beyond anything else. When you are wise, you know how to manage everything. You can manage people around you. You can manage challenges. You can manage tough situations. The months where your targets are not met, you know how to handle it without compromising or destroying anybody. When targets are met, you also know how to encourage people to ensure that they can do better next time. That's how wisdom is being demonstrated in the place of business as a leader, right? So many of them rise fast but cannot sustain success. Finally, many entrepreneurs scale revenue but lack structure. It's not enough to scale revenue. You can have all the money, but if there is no structure, that same revenue will mismanage, and you will not even be able to really say you've made so much. You find yourself making billions and all that, and you can't really put a finger to it, because the structure that is non-existent has allowed this revenue filter away, and you can't really say what is happening to it. What is the real question here? Are we building income or are we building wisdom? Businesses should stop building just income. Let them begin to build wisdom along the line. Let them be better and better and better. Check the market, check the industry, check the competition, check what people are doing differently. Learn from it. See how you can apply it and even do a better job from it. Are we building income or are we building wisdom? Because one can disappear overnight. That is income. Income can disappear. You can filter away. In a nutshell, just some businesses are just one crisis away from crumbling. One single crisis, one EFCC visit, one NRS visit, one regulatory agency visit. That's all it takes. And that's the end of that business. So you want to be wise enough to know how to ensure that you don't find yourself on the wrong side of things as a business person. And of course, even in partnerships and business relationships. The other build, which is wisdom, builds generational impacts. Now let's take some quick questions before I close. Think about this. If you had one request, would you choose money or wisdom? As much as people will think, oh, we have the answer, we'll choose wisdom. You have to think about it to be very, very sure. A lot of people today are choosing money over wisdom. In fact, 99% of people choose money over wisdom, unconsciously and consciously. You need to think about it very well. Would you choose money or would you choose wisdom? Number two, have you ever lost something because of a poor decision? Please feel free to share in the comment section. If you've lost something because you made a poor decision, I believe every one of us is in that box. Let's hear your thoughts on this. Number three, are your current business decisions driven by pressure or by clarity? Are you doing it because there's pressure, because it's what everybody else is doing? You want to jump on the bandwagon? Is that why you're doing what you're doing? Or because you're clear-minded on it? You have full clarity that this is how we want to go. We're not doing this because we are confused. We're doing it because we can see clearly. We've thought through the process. We have the strategies and we know this is how it's going to work. And even when it doesn't work, you're flexible enough to make the relevant adjustments to ensure that that goal you're targeting eventually is what you meet. Finally, is your growth exposing your weaknesses? Because sometimes some businesses, you don't see their weaknesses because they are still small. But as they begin to grow, 20 employees, 50 employees, 100 employees, you begin to see cracks because the structure wasn't set from the beginning. You might not see the cracks when they have 5, 10 employees, but as they grow, you begin to see them. Is that where your business is? You can make a relevant change today. In closing, Solomon's story teaches us something powerful. The goal is not just to succeed. The goal is to build the capacity to sustain success. Because without wisdom, opportunities can become burdens where you cannot utilize them because they become a burden because you're not prepared for them. Growth can become chaos. You can grow and it scatters everything. You begin to wish I wish we had stayed as small as we were. A lot of churches suffer that. Yes, when they were small fellowships, they were doing fine. But by the time they started having branches, a lot of competition and things, and many churches today are finding themselves in that situation. Organizations, workplaces, everywhere it happens, right? And success can become short-lived. If wisdom is not rightly applied, that success you have can filter away in a flash. It just goes. And you're wondering, what happened to us? We're here yesterday, today we are here. Go and look at the stories of big companies that have crumbled. This is what happened. A lot of these things I did not take note of is what led to their downfall. This is Boardroom Scriptures, where faith meets strategy and Bible stories become real-life business lessons. Our next episode is the parable of the talents, why some people multiply money and others lose it. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Michael Olugbenga Shile. See you in the next episode.